Hello, everybody. Doc's conducting his magnum opus over there. Thank you for joining us. This is the Mile High Symposium podcast. I am JT Matthews, one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by the Dr. Nicholas Manning at Dr_N Manning on Twitter. I'm at JT Matthews01 on Twitter. Doc, how are you feeling? We're recording early. We didn't have the availability this week to do our normal live stream on Wednesday. So we're coming to you Sunday morning before the Avs game, after the Nuggets game. How are you feeling in general, though?
You know, in general, like life-wise, feel pretty good. You know, going out there, just giving it 110%. You know, just to let chips fall where they may. It was supposed to be like super busy kid weekend, and because of the weather, we have one 4-year-old soccer game. So that's the gist. I do got some birthday party driving around, but not too bad. Was able to hang out with you and some other buddies, have a good time during round one, which was fun. So that was a blasty. I know we're going to dive into it. A lot to like from the NFL draft. Nuggets on the verge of closing out the Lakers. And the Avalanche are playing like the mother and Avalanche. So sports-wise, feel pretty good. Feel good. How about you?
We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. My day is maybe a little bit more chaotic than yours, but we found some time.
Yours is for sure. You got the Manning day over there. Yeah.
I got two soccer games and a basketball tournament to finish up today. So we'll be driving around. But my second, who's in the competitive basketball league, balled out yesterday. Had a really good won their round robin group, so now they're on to the finals. So we'll see if they can wrap it up today. But he played really good, and it's fun. This level, even though they're 9-year-olds, like it's fun to watch a bunch of kids that are excited about the game and like understand a little bit about it, like more so than
there's some athleticism and comprehension of like what you're trying to teach them. Yeah, it's a good age. Like, hey, I need you to do this, and then when you do that, and then kind of do it, and you're like, hey, this resembles the sport of basketball. Yeah, and
you could see little light bulbs go on when when you coach them up in the little ways. They're like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. And then they try them, and they're like, okay, this is cool. So that's been fun.
It's kind of like if you watch the movie Trolls when it's like hug time, and they're like, bing. It's like, oh, just hug time. It's like that. Like, oh, hey, if you did the thing I told you, that's the result. That's why I've been telling you to do the thing.
Exactly.
Nice job. Yeah. We had that in soccer with your son and my daughter, and they one of our other players kicked it down the side. We've been telling them, right, get on a run, go up the sideline, square it in, right, get a good middle pass, and I bet you it's gonna be pretty open for a shot. Yelling at him like the entire game. Finally, is like the end of the third quarter, and they do the thing, punch it in, and everyone kind of like looks around. I'm like, yeah. That's what we were going for.
We did the thing.
Did the thing. So you know what? It's a fun time, and your 9-year-old is. I mean, he lives, breathes, dies sports, especially basketball. So. The fact that some of the fruits of his labor are paying off, that's just super cool. Because one, I love your kid. Two, he puts in the work, bro, and it's nice that like it shows. It shows. He's one of the younger, smaller kids on the team, and he makes everyone look dumb, which is great.
Yeah, he does a good job. He came back. He played 2 basketball games, then he came into the basement with my 6-year-old. And they were playing like little NBA Jam on the little Papa Shot hoop. Like, dude, you just got done playing 2 competitive basketball games. Like, what are you doing? And he's just like, it's just in his blood.
It's what I do.
Well, let's since we're talking basketball, let's transition to some basketball. I said we were going to start with Avs, but I decided to change it. Let's start on kind of like the lowest note, and let's get to maybe the highest note. The Denver Nuggets played the Los Angeles Lakers game 4 last night. Did not complete the sweep. The streak is broken. It is topped out at 11 wins in a row versus the LA Lakers. What's your feeling after that loss? Any reason to be worried? All of the normal questions coming out of a game that you were expected to win and didn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's like a little bit in the sense of you gave a team with talent life that you didn't necessarily want to. So there's like that part. Are you worried about the series? No. But the next round is going to be pretty challenging with Minnesota. And, what Ant's doing, it's kind of the more time that you have to rest and prep, probably the better. That said, that was probably their worst game from start to finish. And what? It was 8-point loss or something. I mean, shots weren't falling. You could just tell it's just not the night. And it still took some clutch baskets from the Lakers to be able to hold off the Nuggets. So I would expect them tomorrow night to run a rough shot and close this bad boy out. So no, not overly worried. Go in, you smash them on. They really, the Lakers really, to make this series, needed game 3 because that puts doubt in. That gives you an opportunity to even up the series. I know there's it should be 2-2 if AD, if Jamal doesn't make that shot, but Jamal made that shot. So you can do the ifs games for sure. The Nuggets also stormed back to force overtime. All right, it would have stormed back to force overtime. So the momentum and the stamina is with the Nuggets in a game like that. So they probably are going to, in my estimation, they're going to execute better in the half court, which typically is the reason why you win most overtime games, especially playoff games. So I don't know about it should be. No, it shouldn't have been. But I can see how you would think that for sure. So no, I think that the Nuggets will close it out. I do think if for some reason they come out flat and expect that the Lakers are going to roll over and don't close out, then it's 3-2. You go back to LA. Then I think that this team might feel pressure for the first time in a while, which I don't know that I'm worried about losing the series necessarily, but it's something that you really don't. You don't even want to put yourself in the position for. LeBron James is one of the greatest players to ever play for a reason. 3-1 in the NBA Finals. Could he do that again in round 1? Maybe. Maybe for sure. So why even leave that storyline up? Let's go in and handle business. And I presume, pretty confident that'll be the case.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's one of those things like the Nuggets haven't played their best still. Even though Nikola Jokic's stat line last night was insane, 33, 14, and 14. That's just insane numbers. And he's just been maintaining that throughout the series without getting into like fifth gear, it seems like. Aaron Gordon had a tough game. He had 7 points total, only 3 rebounds, which is out of character for him. MPJ had a good shooting night. He had 27 and 11. But otherwise, it's kind of, Jamal, his efficiency was bad again. They just look a little, I don't know. I don't want to say lackadaisical because I think they want to win. And obviously they've won up to this point. Things that require a lot of effort, a lot more effort to win these games. The Lakers are a talented team. You knew when you ran into them in the first round that it was going to be a tough out. You can't lose the rebounding battle. They lost 46-40, the rebounding battle. They did win the free throw battle, which is surprising. They had 25 attempts to LA's 18 attempts. Yeah. So, I mean, it just shows you that if they ratchet up the energy a little bit, they'll be fine. If they can create opportunities for themselves, if they're doing the little things like Aaron Gordon did the other night, obviously that's kind of an outlier game. He's not usually going to get 20, 29 or 27, whatever he got. But, if he gets closer to 20, that makes this game pretty even. 11-point loss could be, neck and neck right at the end again. I don't know. I'm not too worried. I don't like it because it's LeBron and AD, and I think that they can will a team to win. I don't know that they can will a team to win 4 times in a row though against the defending champs. I just don't think that that's realistic. But we just got to shoot better. We went 30% from 3-point range, so 9 for 30, 39 for 87 from the field, so only 44% shooting. That's just out of character for the Nuggets. And so I think, Nikola Jokic said last year that the hardest game of the entire playoffs for them was the closeout game against the Lakers. The closeout games are just hard. Yep. I think they probably learned from that and said it's probably going to be a lot easier to close this team out at home than it is on the road. And maybe that factored into how they played the way they played. Only question I want to ask coming out of that game is any worry about Jamal Murray? He looked, I don't want to say he looked hobbled or injured, but maybe a little bit dinged up, maybe not 100%. My feeling is that this kind of felt similar to last year when we played the Timberwolves in the first round. Jamal had a hard time against Nickeil Alexander-Walker at times, getting his shot, finding his place or finding space to get off a shot, and then just kind of rose as the playoffs went on. Do you think it's something more like that? Or do you think that there's possibly, a little bit of nagging injury that's holding him back?
Maybe both. To assume that you're at this stage of the season and you're probably not, you're not hampered in some way, shape, or form, I think would be naive for us. That said, right, what's the adage, right? If you're on the court, on the field, if you're out there on the ice, you're not injured, right? So it's a little bit like expect if Jamal's playing, Jamal's got to play as good as Jamal's got to play. I think some of it might be, and I think that the Lakers are trying to make it difficult for him and making the other pieces work to beat him. And either they got to work really hard to be able to get him back into the game, or they have to utilize that to their advantage. And MPJ, Aaron Gordon have to have a game 3 performance till kind of the changing of the tide when you go back to a similar matchup again against Minnesota. My assumption would be, if I'm Malone, I really probably try and get Maul going early.
Yep.
It won't get easier, right? So you'll get Minnesota, potentially then you're going to get OKC, 2 teams with really athletic backcourts who can make it hard for Jamal, and you need Jamal to win those matchups regardless for this team to be able to repeat as champs. So, so I think, I think that will probably happen early and often. And you saw that with Jamal's big shot, that Nikola knew that and was keeping his co-star in the game. I wouldn't be shocked if we see something like that again.
Yeah. My only criticism for this team so far, my only real criticism is that I feel like yesterday, and I think a little bit throughout the playoffs or throughout the first series, since we've won, it really hasn't come up. But I think you're starting to miss Bruce Brown a little bit in this rotation. Just the consistency that he brought on both sides of the ball. I would, if I were Malone, I'd challenge Christian Brown and Peyton Watson to elevate their games. I think it's been good that they haven't been negatives out there, for a guy who in Peyton Watson, that this is his first real playoff playing experience and it's against a tough Lakers team. It's been good to see that he's not been a negative out there, that you're not saying like, what is Peyton Watson doing out there? Like, that's been positive, but I think they've got to be challenged to be better than that. They've got to be impactful in their minutes. I was thinking about, they've been averaging, I think Peyton Watson had 8 points in the first game. Christian Brown's had 6, 4, just single digits. And the playoffs, those feel bigger, those points, 6 points, 8 points in the playoffs is like, feels more like 12, 14 regular season. So I think that is a positive for them, but they've just got to be able to produce more. They've got to put guys in more uncomfortable situations. They've got to be a little more aggressive on the offensive end, not just shooting the 3, but trying to get to the rim. Peyton Watson's kind of settled for some 3s when he's out there. it's not the strength of his game, not up to this point. Christian Braun's been aggressive driving the lane, but not trying to finish. At times when he has been aggressive, he's been rewarded for that. At game 3, I remember a drive down the lane against LeBron where he just kind of hung and put up a little bit of a wild shot, but it went down. They got to create opportunities for themselves. This is kind of an offense that when Nikola Jokic isn't out there, someone's got to take the lead, and Jamal isn't 100% clearly, whether that be health or just kind of his, I don't want to say focus, but just kind of where he's at in this series. He just hasn't reached that potential peak. So I would like to challenge those guys, if I were Malone, to just be more aggressive. Try and find a shot that isn't a 3-point shot for Peyton Watson. Get around the rim. Be a menace like you have been. Bring all the energy that you can. And let's close this team out on Monday night.
Yeah, I think that they were at least, I think with like 10 minutes left, last time I was kind of paying attention, neither of them had scored.
Yeah. Let's see. I had the box score up. Let me see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they were filling it up necessarily. And for guys that are needed off of the bench, like you said, I think you have to be impactful. So either your defense has to be outstanding, attacking the basket with a plan, or you got to make your shots. And it's one of those where if one of those isn't working, you better accentuate the others, please and thank you.
Yeah.
You're not out there just to soak up minutes. You're out there to make a difference. And so I also chalk it up to, the Lakers weren't going to die. They weren't going to roll over and accept getting swept again, right? Like they didn't want to hear that.
Right.
So those guys get paid too, and there's some talent over there on that roster. So I'm going to give them a little bit of credit where credit's due. They played good. They played a good game and were able to close it out. And I think, in leagues where the margins aren't that big, that was the difference. Their bench and their key contributors were guys that were, willing to take and make shots. And so now it's the Nuggets supporting cast. It's their turn to rebound.
Yep. I'm with you. Let's move on to the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado Avalanche now lead after starting 0-1 in the series, are up 2-1, 2-1. They got a crucial one on the road in Winnipeg, and then they came home and dominated on home ice against Winnipeg, bringing their lead to 2-1 in the series. I think Winnipeg's in over their heads. I'm just going to say it. Looking kind of statistically at these games, the Avalanche are getting so many shots on goal compared to Winnipeg. Winnipeg can grind you down a little bit. But man, I'm looking at the shot comparisons from game to game, and it's crazy. Last game, Georgiev faced 24 shots to Hellebuyck's 39 shots. In game 2, Georgiev faced 30 shots and Hellebuyck faced 30. Oh, no, that's not the right one. Hold on. Yeah, no, I think that was right. Yeah, 30 shots to 31. So that one was a little more evenly spaced. But even in the one loss that we had, Georgiev faced 23 shots and Hellebuyck faced 46 shots. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of shots on goal in comparison. I think that if the Avalanche can kind of sustain those numbers of attempts, whether they're good, bad, average, whatever, if you're getting that puck on net, that's creating opportunities for, the goaltender's got to be sharp. If they're not sharp, that leaves opportunity for someone to clear up some a loose puck and get into the back of the net. I just think that the offensive game from the Avalanche right now is a bit overwhelming for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yep. Yeah, it's you really look at how in game 1, a lost opportunity. We had talked about it then. You score 6 goals and you lose. But when you really now look at it in the context of the series, the Avalanche outplayed Winnipeg in that game too. Their goalie just really And they had some mental lapses on defense, but just kind of fell asleep at the wheel. And now that you're getting some competent goaltending, you see what happens, right? Like you said, just an offensive onslaught. When the Avalanche are skating and they are doing the little things, that's a dangerous combination. And you're seeing that when you kind of felt in game 3 that just it was going to happen.
Yeah,
that the dam was going to break at some point. When you just continue to put pressure on, and you're getting good chance after chance, at some point the dam will break. I don't care how good your goalie is, and that is exactly what happened. Exactly.
Yeah. It's been, I think as long as you can get solid goaltending, which is what we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, this should be a series that the Avalanche can win pretty handily. There's some talented players on Winnipeg for sure. They're a well-coached team. They execute the way that they're supposed to on both sides of the ball. Generally, they don't make too many mistakes. They're not too many in self-inflicted wounds. And their defense has struggled a little bit at times against the size of them. But I think overall, some guys have come to play in this series. I mean, you got Casey Middlestat with three assists last night, 2 nights ago in the win. A guy that came over trade deadline that you have high expectations for, but you just never know when you throw a guy into a second lineup or second line on the fly. You hope that they have time to acclimate and get used to the new coaching and new offensive,
especially with the pressure of joining this team is and the success they've had as of late, right? And so it's not just you're coming in, we hope you can make a difference. We expect you to go out and ball out.
Yeah, and he's lived up to this point. McKinnon's look good. Our first lines look good. Defensively, our top pair has been pretty dominant. And I think if you can kind of just maintain what you've been doing, this game or this series should be, I don't know about a lock, but it should be pretty close to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now they're playing with all the confidence, and to do that when I think that they've given up the first goal in all 3 games.
I think they scored first.
Did they score first last night? Yeah. But they have been trailing in all 3 games.
Yes, that's true.
And to have that happen and continue to come out, and then especially in the last 2 games, I mean, convincing fashion. It wasn't, they didn't win in overtime. In a thriller, they put the games away so much so. End of game 3, Winnipeg's getting feisty, and usually that happens when close your ears, kids. When you're getting your ass kicked, so all of a sudden you're like, you're tired, right? You're tired of losing. You're tired of teams just being better than you. Maybe there's some chirping going on a little bit, and rightfully so. You know what? Like, unlike it's probably how the Lakers feel right now a little bit. I mean, the Avalanche got swept during the season, Winnipeg, and I think Winnipeg handled them in most of the matchups, especially the last couple. Yeah. And then, then you beat them, you beat them when their offense hitting all cylinders in game 1, and you're probably feeling yourself and maybe looking past them a little bit. And the Avalanche recognized that. They turned it on, and now you got a series. This, to me, though, is a huge game. I wouldn't say it has to be a must-have matchup or win for the Avalanche, because I think if you go back to Winnipeg and they have the momentum, I think that could be a really difficult thing to stop. But if they pull out this win and go up 3-1, like you said, I think then there's the inevitability. And sure, I think hockey, you can string together 3 wins a little bit easier because of the hot goaltending, maybe. Maybe than some other sports, to say easier, but still super hard.
Yeah, of course.
And but they would be guaranteed to come back to Colorado one more time, which they're phenomenal at home, and you'd feel really good about, at minimum, probably being able to close it out in game 6. So I think it's big, and I think that they play with their hair on fire tonight. It'll be tonight at 12:30
in 1 hour.
It'll be raucous, right? It'll be super loud, and I'm here for it, obviously, as I'm wearing
my
shirt. I like the way, though, that they're playing. It's a little like Nuggets-ish, right? And it's like when, like you said, Middlestat, Val's goal last night was just prettier than pretty. There's several where they worked harder.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you have that grit, it allows or supports the opportunity of the really gifted opportunities and goals. They kind of come hand in hand. Tell it to the kids all the time, right? Most goals or points scored aren't pretty.
Mm-hmm.
They're 3rd and 2 runs. They are, they're rebounds in front of the net. They are hustle. You hustle around third, and someone bobbles the ball. That's usually how you score in sports. It's not knick-knack, pretty top shelf. You skate around 3 different players. But then when those opportunities come, right, like you're in the groove because the whole team is kind of engaged, that you're prepared for that moment versus, some of the other instances. So I feel really good about them right now. And kudos to Georgie.
100%.
I mean, manhood was checked. All of that stuff. Like, was this the biggest, should Joe Sakic's job be safe because of the decision to go with Georgie and not go outside and bring another one in? Not only getting Georgie, but not replacing him again.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot to have that feeling about you with the expectations of this club, and to not only rebound, but I think to come back and be an asset the last 2 games. He hasn't, it hasn't just been good enough. He's played well. He's played good hockey. So that's a recipe. If they can maintain that level of defensive play and goaltending, I feel good about not only the chance in the series. Like I said, I think if they beat Winnipeg, it's a good stamp of we're here. We have a real chance to hoist up the cup, because that's a good, solid team. And if they close out this series and Georgie is a factor in that, that's really frightening if I'm the rest of the NHL.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's just a reminder, just kind of looking back at after that first game, it was 7-6 loss. And then I think that the total goal differential, or the total goals scored for each team, it's like 18-12 in the Avs' favor. 7 of those 12 for Winnipeg came in the first game. So they've scored four goals to the Avs 10, in the last 2 games. It's a reminder that maybe that the goaltending was a bit of an anomaly from Georgie in game 1.
Yeah.
And that the Avs haven't scored less than 5 goals in a game so far in the playoffs. So,
right.
It just seems like one is more sustainable than the other to me.
Yeah.
But time will tell,
Time will tell.
The good thing about the NHL playoffs is that they're far from predictable. Teams get upset all the time. You see 8 seeds beat 1 seeds almost every year. I don't know if that'll happen this year, but it's just one of those sports that, like you said, goaltending gets hot, the team gets confidence, they catch fire, the chemistry's there.
Yeah.
And someone lets off the gas a little bit, and then you find yourself in a hole that's hard to come back from. But
it really is like the chemistry of this game. I think it's right in there with the NFL, probably, like when you get to the playoffs, just like how well are you complementing one another? But because of the switch, right? I mean, you're playing offense and defense in the same shift versus the NFL when it's, when you're coming off and you're specialists and all that kind of stuff. To know and respond together in hockey, I think that value, I think, is underappreciated.
Yeah.
Because a superstar outside of a really, really good goalie, there really has to be that compliment. It can't. There's not a player that can carry, unlike some other sports. So you're seeing that in effect. And like you said, maybe Georgie's struggles were more the anomaly than not. He had a pretty good regular season, really, until like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think the whole team was struggling the last 2 weeks. I don't think it was Georgie problem. I think Georgie was a part of the problem.
Georgie,
you saw what happens. They tightened some stuff up.
Just a reminder that Georgie made the All-Star game. So, like, obviously he was playing well enough early on and had played. I mean, he was getting a high volume of games compared to some of the other goaltenders just because we hadn't really sussed out exactly what that backup goaltender situation was going to be like. And we hadn't really gone all in with Annunen as the backup up to that point.
Right.
And then Georgie had some really stellar games throughout the season. I think that, like we said, if we can kind of get more of the, not a regression or whatever to the mean, if he's more towards the average of what he's been doing throughout the season, this team has a good chance of winning any game.
Yes.
That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's jump into Broncos draft talk. Let's just start with the obviously biggest pick. Number 12, the Broncos select Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. Just walk me through how you were feeling in the moment. I think I know I had some mixed feelings. I assume that you probably did too. But just let us know kind of like as that selection was made and then maybe 24 hours later, the difference of how you were feeling that day versus the next day.
Yeah, I had kind of come to grips that it most likely was going to be Nix. I think it was either going to be JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix. At least that's what I believed. Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams weren't on the radar.
Nope.
So it's like Washington wasn't moving out of 2, Chicago wasn't moving out of 1. So let's not even like play the game of like, if you really love him, like the other person has to answer the phone.
Yeah.
And so I started to watch a little bit more of what he does. I became a little bit more impressed. I think that there are much more physical tools there than we have been giving credit for. I think his arm strength, I think, is a bigger plus than it's not. Really clean throwing mechanics. And he's actually a really good physical athlete. When you have Jane Daniels, who's running a 4.4 or 4.3, right? You can probably kind of feel a certain way about like that and just the significant dip. But I think he's a better physical athlete right now than JJ is. And JJ is a pretty good athlete. I think he's a better athlete than Michael Penix is. And Michael Penix ran a 4.40. Because there's some strength. If you've seen the man and cut off, right? Like he's got some pipes, be able to make a play like that. But again, being able to reset his feet, being able to scramble, move around, manipulate the pocket to be able to get a good, a good sight on where you're going to be able to throw the ball. And not going to go like full weirdo here, but, he can throw from different angles. That's one thing that we all love about Patrick Mahomes is the ability to sidearm it, to flip it, do all that stuff. There was a lot of that with Bo Nix. So when that pick was made, even though he was the 6th one, I truly believe that he was one of the best fits for Sean Payton's offense. I'm not going to go out here and say like I had him ranked higher than the other guys and all that stuff. I do believe that the Broncos had him higher than maybe some other teams. I think because of the fact of what he does and what Sean Payton wants their quarterback to do, I think those things marry pretty well. I did hear a ton, especially over the last week, about how smart he is. I knew he was smart already. I think he graduated magna cum laude with his master's. And if you have any idea how hard it is to get on that list, it's super hard. He got referred to on 3 separate occasions. I heard from Cecil Lammey as the supercomputer. I think if you can get someone that can do as much as he can pre-snap, which is really hard to get now in college football. Not a lot of guys are doing pre-snap work. So the fact that he can do that, even if the offense itself is a lot of swings, that's college football for the most part. Caleb Williams threw more short and swing passes than Bo Nix did this year. So it's a little bit of like, be careful how you're just slapping stuff around. So I think the fit itself, I think is stupendous. I think the really good part about a quarterback is a quarterback coming in and playing at age 24 isn't that bad, because guys play till they're 35, 36, 37, 38 now. They take care of themselves. So if you're going to tell me that you can get 12 to 14 years, essentially, right, of really good play out of him because of his style of play, the fact that he's a little bit older and maybe ready to come take on the challenge might be a really good thing versus 21-year-old who maybe about that life still. He's married. He's pretty mature cat. So I'm excited about it. I actually really, you and I were texting with some buddies. It is the first time, long time, that hope and optimism are like together. What I mean by that is, I think you're always hopeful, right? Like if this happens, like all that stuff is like grounded in, are there signs here for optimism? Which when you can see the plan, like, oh, right. They knew really quick Russ wasn't going to be the guy. Sean Payton said, hey, I'll give it a year with Russ so we don't just throw money down the drain, but I don't think he's a guy. So if you're going to hire me, like I get to do what I want if it doesn't work out. Yep. Okay, great. Handshake. He gave it a try to his standards. Don't know if I agree with the try. Don't know if I don't. But he came off of that pretty quick. And at least from the reporting that we get to hear about, he knew that Nix was his guy a while ago, months ago. And even the opportunity they had to go to Eugene. And I believe that. I don't believe that that's just PR pumping out there. There's some of that probably in some aspects with a lot of stuff. I don't think with that. I think because it lines up with the other reports that you hear about Bo Nix, I think it's really, I think it's really kind of stuff that's married. So Sean Payton is staking his legacy, his Hall of Fame credentials on Bo Nix. So that's enough for me, because I think Sean Payton is a damn good coach still. So with that, I think I'm even more excited about it. So I got myself prepared. Thursday, I was like, all right, we got a guy that this coaching staff believes in. And to me, like, that's what most of us wanted. Like, pick a guy that you believe in, that we're going to like build towards, and, no more stop gaps, no more of that stuff. And they did. And now I'm actually even more excited because of the fit and the player and the commitment. So that's kind of my takes. Where are you at, my man?
Yeah, I've grown into this pick more so than I was initially excited about it. For me, I always look at the value of the selection, and if it doesn't kind of hit a certain threshold, it makes me feel a certain way. When a guy like Brock Bowers is there and you pass on him to take, the sixth best quarterback, obviously they don't view him as the sixth best quarterback, but you kind of get what I'm saying is, like, the value isn't, could you get that guy with the 21st pick? Could you get the guy with the 28th pick? Probably it would feel better. Yep. That being said, I wanted them to take a quarterback. I wanted them to take someone that they believe that they could mold into a franchise guy. I think there are a lot of good tools with Bo Nix. He probably wasn't, he wasn't my first pick for sure. But seeing Sean Payton be excited about the pick, kind of watching a little bit more of Bo Nix over the last few days, understanding like our offensive scheme is going to look a lot different than it did last year. We're not going to be rolling out the same offense. We're not going to be making the same play calls. We've got more of a prototypical size, strength quarterback under center that's going to be able to utilize the middle of the field. I'm excited for the short passing game. I think it's something that we've really struggled with for a long time. And it's just, I don't want to say talked myself into being excited, because I think other people have done it more so than I have done it for myself. But I think that there are aspects that I am excited about. And part of that is just, there's going to be an offensive switch that I'm excited for. I was tired of watching kind of the Russ offense taking shots down the sides of the field, hoping that guys come up with jump balls. Like, we've got some nice pieces now. This is a good beginning to the rebuild, quote unquote, rebuild era. And let's see where that takes us. We've committed to a quarterback now. That means in the next draft cycle, we can start thinking about offensive line. We can start thinking about some key defensive pieces that are going to bolster this team. And I think that, you've kind of set the floor where it is right now with some young talent that I'm pretty excited about generally. And let's just see how these guys develop and how Coach Payton develops them in their system.
Yeah. So this is PFF's breakdown. I'm going to kind of go over this when we got as we go through the picks. So if you like Pro Football Focus, you agree to their stuff. Not only did they give the Broncos an A- overall for their entire draft, which is super dope. You're looking at just this aspect and what Bo Nix brings. So throwing mechanics are, 90 percentile, decision making 90 percentile, accuracy and touch 90 percentile, velocity like 80 percentile. So they even identified that his arm strength is pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Deep ball 80 percentile. So some of those things I think are something to be able to give you some positives, as well as you can see some of the metrics. I mean, stays away from negative plays. Sean Payton likes that.
Yeah, I like that.
On non-play action, if you can do that on non-play action, imagine what he can do when Payton's drawing up play action stuff, which usually gives rookies more opportunity to be able to read the field. It's usually half reads because you're holding the defender, etc. Early downgrade, win on first down, and minimize negative plays. I mean, how many years have we watched it go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 8, or 2nd and 10, or 10. Right? It's just so tired. Yeah, can we play ahead of the chains, and then pass the sticks? Can we throw past the sticks on third down? Do we have to settle for all that stuff? And so I think when you're looking at how he has ranked passing grade first overall out of all of the 165 quarterbacks. Ranked intermediate grade, first overall, top 5 in deep passing, top 10. So ranked 8th overall, no pressure grade, and then ranked number 1 in under pressure. Sounds like a pretty damn good player, in my opinion. So though it's not the sexiest, right? I think Caleb Williams brings you the opportunity to be special. Jane Daniels brings you the opportunity to be special. I think those are probably the only two in this class that I think really have kind of the special ceiling that can be reached. So outside of that, I don't think JJ McCarthy is ready to go day one as much as Bo is. Michael Penix got drafted into literally the worst situation possible.
Terrible.
I'm sorry, but hey, pick up some other. Drake May, right? Like it's really half and half on that cat. A lot of people think he has a ton of tools and he has a chance to be successful. They still have no one to throw to, really, in New England. But he might as well be a bust. And doesn't rank as high in any of these things. And I really like, no ranking system outside of the coaching. Coaches know what's being called and how they rank it, and all that kind of stuff, or how they grade plays. I mean, this is pretty exciting stuff. So I think letting ourselves be happy that our quarterback has a chance to be a really damn good football player. And we have one now. It's their guy. They're invested in it. I think all of those are really good signs. So does that mean that he's going to pan out? Not necessarily. But I think it shows that there's a recipe for success here. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think you're talking too about Caleb Williams and, some of those other guys may have a higher ceiling. But Bo Nix probably has a higher floor. And I think that that's important. I think that's important when it comes to turning your franchise around, even if he's not the guy. A guy who minimizes mistakes, a guy who has been here. He has played a lot of football, competitive football, who's not going to be rattled. He's going to have a short memory span when it comes to making mistakes. As long as we can protect him, that's my biggest worry, is that he's not going to have a lot of time to make those reads. But the offensive line isn't, it's not in a terrible shape. There's some definite things that we need to see. we need to see who's going to fill in that center position and how reliable they're going to be. We need to see how our tackles hold up. If McGlinchey and Bowles can be healthy and can stay away from taking bad penalties. There's definitely some question marks there. That being said, I think, you want a veteran guy. You want a guy who's got a high floor in those situations that's going to be able to move on to the next offensive possession and make something out of nothing. And so I think if I to spin it in a way that I would get excited about, I think it's that short to intermediate passing game, that ability to get the ball out of his hands quickly, make reads quickly, and take some of the pressure off of that offensive line to hold up for 5 or 6 or 7 seconds, like they had to do with Russ, who was sometimes running for his life. I don't know that we'll see that as much. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, well, he's not going to put himself in the position to run like that, right? I think ESPN, right. I think the offensive line for Denver was one of the few that ranked top 10 in run blocking win rate and pass blocking win rate in the NFL, which goes to show that a ton of that was because Russ didn't trust what he saw. Bo Nix isn't a player that's going to hold on to the ball. So that's where my excitement comes from, is he's going to be able to run the offense like you were kind of saying from jump, the way it's supposed to be ran, and we're going to get to see how that looks. So that's pretty exciting, and I think given some wins there, and I think moving on to the rest of the draft class, you kind of see they picked guys from winning programs and guys that produced, which I think it's not it's not a bad way to go. Not a bad way to go.
Yep, I agree.
I think looking at it.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go Jonah Ellis here real quick. So one of the guys I really liked in the draft, I thought that Jonah Ellis, outside of actually, to be honest, even though I am I'm a huge Florida State fan. I love Jared Verse. Even with Jared Verse, there's not a guy here that I felt like was flawless. I thought really, it's going to be hit or miss with a lot of these guys.
For sure.
Jonah Ellis is a guy that produced, has NFL bloodlines. Not only his brother's in the NFL, dad was in the NFL for a long time, got to play for the Broncos for a little bit. 6'2", almost 250. Unlike a lot of players that play at Utah or BYU, I believe he's only 21. So I believe he's relatively young. Produced last year, I think he had 12 sacks, which is my estimation again, 13 sacks. He was 6th in the nation in sacks. Had a ton of hurries and won the pass rush win rate a lot. So 86 percentile is going to need to bulk up to be able to really hold up out there. 5 to 10 pounds. I think if you just transition some of the, baby fat to muscle, easy for me to say. But I really love his, he's got NFL hands from that pass rush perspective, coming from a family of NFLers. Flexibility and bend are a positive. And also the fact that, one, you can never have enough pass rush. Like you just can't. 2, we didn't have a lot of guys that won one-on-one last year. And if you have a guy that can do that and be that, you got him in the 3rd round at a premium position. I like it, and a guy that's grown up around the game. I don't think we'll get shook by the moments in the NFL. Seems like a really grounded cat. And so I'm excited. I think Jonah Ellis is a really good player. Jonah Williams is not really that great of a player, but we're not talking about him. I think I'm really excited about it. I think that was a good pick. I think that was, most publications. I know PFF had him as like their 52nd prospect. Quite a few other people had him going early day 2. So the fact that they got him mid round 3, well, I think it was a good move. What are your thoughts about Jonah Ellis? You like the move? Anything else that you would have rather had them do, or what's your take about that spot and the player?
Yeah, I'm not too critical of the pick in general. It's not one of my favorite picks just because I think that, and it's hard, I think in the 3rd round, you're trying to find guys that can play. You're not necessarily trying to find bona fide stars. That's what the first 2 rounds are for generally, mostly the 1st round. I think Joe Ellis will be able to play. I do worry about his size and strength a little bit, especially in the run game. I think that's probably the biggest concern. But I think up and down this up and down this draft, they took trait-heavy guys in general, and I think Ellis is one that has some flash to his game, has some speed, has some physicality that I like. But I think ultimately he's a kind of rotational guy. He's a little bit like Nick Benito to me. It's kind of a slightly redundant, which I didn't love. I actually maybe like Ellis a little bit more just from a size perspective.
I do too. I think he comes in, a little bit more NFL body at almost 250. Yep.
So I'm not critical of it. I think it's a position that we needed to draft regardless of where.
Right.
It maybe wasn't going to be, again, my favorite pick at that spot, but I understand what they're doing with that roster construction, and I'm confident that he will be a good rotational player, which I think, you can get guys that play right now. That's important.
Yep. Yeah, and I think he's a good enough player that you're going to get production.
Yep.
To me, he might even be the best rookie in this class, like that you get from expectation and production because of his skill set, the need there, the high floor. I really like how PFF's competitive toughness. So really, he's got to get a little stronger to anchor against the run. It's not want to tenacity. He is a guy that will go whistle to whistle, which I think that's a lot of what sacks are, just being relentless and putting yourself in a position to be around the quarterback. It also doesn't keep you out of the market next year to go back to the edge when you have Jonathan Cooper and Barry Browning up. Because ideally, you want at least 3 to 4 guys that you can have in a consistent rotation, injury protection, all that good stuff. So I dig it. I think that was a pretty solid and strong pick at number 76. Moving on, in the surprise of the draft, in my opinion, the Broncos select or move up, round 4 to 102. Sanders, tight end out of Texas, goes off one pick before. I was like, that was it.
I felt that way too.
Yeah, all of a sudden the Broncos have a trade, go to get their guy, Bo's guy. My man Troy Franklin, who's an absolute dog. If you haven't watched his Instagram, I'm really shout out to Tim for sharing that. If you didn't watch it and his drafted, you'll love him. So let me get your quick thoughts maybe on Troy Franklin. Do you like the pick? And do you like the value here?
Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's a good pick and good value. So it's probably one of my favorite picks in the draft. I think it's going to be nice for Bo to have a guy that he's familiar with. They already have a rapport. I don't think that's going to be it. I think that's only a positive. I don't think there's any negative there. Troy Franklin's a burner, man. You get him at one-on-one with anyone, he's going to outrun 95% of the guys. Straight line. He's a playmaker. He can take it to the house any play. I think the Broncos need more guys like that. I think Mims is a guy that can do that. I don't know that Mims is as fast as Troy Franklin is, though, to be honest. It would be fun to watch them kind of sprint it out and see what happens. But I like the value. He's a little slight. I think he needs to put on a few more pounds. He's 6'3", though. He's got the height. He's got, I wouldn't say great hands. I think that's something that some drops plagued him in his career a little bit. That worries me as one of your primary, the plan is probably for him to be one of your primary pass catchers. I'm interested to see how they work him into this wide receiver rotation. I almost wonder if he'll be utilized more out of the slot initially, just because of that speed and the kind of game that Bo Nix likes to play. Get the ball in his hands and let's see what he can do. Coming across the middle, something like that. But I think that it's a good value. He's a good young prospect. Like you said, he's got the attitude that you want coming in. I think he's going to come in and compete from day one. Kind of in my mind, a lot of things. He checks a lot of boxes that Jerry Jeudy never really checked for me as far as competitiveness and upside. I think you got excited about the Jerry Jeudy separation, and Jerry Jeudy's hands were pretty good generally. But this is more exciting to me than if we had retained Jerry Jeudy and paid him and hoped that he'd panned out.
Nailed it. I won't to not be too redundant. It's Darius Slayton was one comp that he got. I really like this too. Christian Watson, you hit on the head. Competitive toughness. Again, the Broncos need a toughness, and their quarterback is a pretty tough cat. You saw Ellis and how PFF thought about him. Troy Franklin, even though he's slight, like they put it right here, general strength can be a concern, but it does not affect his willingness to go up strong for catches or get his nose into blocks.
Yep.
That was nowhere near Jerry Jeudy's profile ever. Is a vertical long speed, but not only that, I think that Mims is probably a faster threat, but the fact that he's 6'2", 6'3" with pretty good arm length, he's a guy that can go get up and win it. If we were to blink and say, hey, next year your starting receivers outside are Mims and Franklin, one that has elevated the speed game up. And I think the big playability, which this team has not had in a long time, and you have to have it to think that you can dink and dunk, 3 yards in a cloud of dust and consistently score points. You just can't do it. You need to be able to have some big plays. And I think he's a guy that can and will provide those big plays. So I like it. I wouldn't have necessarily thought the receiver was a route that they needed to go, but adding good ones is never bad, especially in this league. It's a little bit like their next pick, which we'll talk about here in a second. So it's also a good plan for the future. Cortland Sutton last year of his deal could get moved as of, before training camp. Yeah. Tim Patrick, injury history, last year deal, right? And then you have Josh Reynolds, who's really just here on a 1-year deal, team option kind of thing with the guaranteed money. But I think you have your future set, right? So now you have your quarterback of the future locked. You got 2 guys that had, round 1, round 2 grades from a lot of publications, a lot of folks at your X and your Z. That's a pretty sweet start to building a consistent and big play potential offense. So I'm here for it. I am here for it.
Yeah. It's fun to picture a speed lineup with this offense with Mims and Troy Franklin and Jaleel McLaughlin and even Dulcich. If you want to get Dulcich out there, like you can have a track meet out there for if you need it. If you find
you have some real mismatch options like your time. I mean, you can motion guys, put them in different spots. Yeah, if Greg Dulcich, don't even ask him to block. He's Jimmy Graham now, and take care of your hamstrings, bro. I like it. I think for keep the momentum going, we're going to move to the Broncos' next pick. So I believe it was 145 in the 5th round. We had Chris Abrams-Drain, cornerback out of Missouri, player that I liked. Didn't necessarily think that was the way that they would go. Not that they wouldn't, but I'm not in the know necessarily on these things. So I wasn't sure how they thought about him. But when you go look again at his player profile, let me show you. What do you guess? Competitive toughness on a very high scale.
That's high.
So again, they want guys who are going to go compete. So he's a little wiry, 6 foot 180. I think in today's NFL, where you're not really asking corners to be that overly aggressive. It is all right. His change of direction is phenomenal. Great ball skills, and good feel. Has had a ton of starting experience. So get a guy that has done it for a bit at a pretty high level. Mizzou's defense was no joke last year. They gave Georgia all it could handle in their matchup. So I think that bodes well for him. So, he puts on 10 pounds, which is fairly reasonable considering NFL weight training programs and all that stuff. 6 foot, 185, 190, 195, I think is a really, really good size for corner. So I like it. I like where he's at. So he forced 34 incompletions since 2021. Not bad. So I like where he's at. Again, a guy that has shown really good propensity to cover people, which I have heard in this league is a good thing. They need depth. Can never have enough corners. I think it raises the floor, makes some guys expendable, maybe gives you some freedom to move Riley Moss to a safety position and let his ball skills and athleticism play out there because of Justin Simmons moving on and that position being a flux. At anything, it gives you more depth because injuries happen and a solid player to that room. Any additional thoughts you'd like to share for the people?
Yeah, I think the biggest worry is his size, just in general, his weight, more so his strength than anything else. But I think he makes up for it with that competitive toughness, which is not, that's been targeted in this draft. You're looking for guys who compete and are willing to do whatever it takes to win a play. It reminds me a little bit of a guy like Derek Stingley, who got highly drafted last year. Just from a ball skill perspective, he makes plays on the ball. He looks fluid out there.
Yeah.
He tends to
his fluidity is really nice.
Yeah, he doesn't get burnt too much. I think he has a lot of good fundamentals to play that position, and I'm excited. I think it was another good value pick. I like the pick. I do worry about his size, but again, you're looking for guys that'll get in there and compete. I wonder if he'll end up being more of a slot nickel guy in his career as opposed to a perimeter defender, but I think that he's got some good upside.
Yeah, I think so. And if you're getting that in the 5th round, you're getting a guy that could potentially contribute. I mean, really, at this point, it's like, let's see. Has shown that he can play with the best of them, and so I really like that one. I really wasn't overly excited initially about this pick, or really high on him in general.
Sure.
Audric Estime, running back out of Notre Dame. That said, we knew that they needed to add to the room. I think for the most part, we were like speed, which would have been super dope. That said, when you are built like this cat, he makes people miss. So it's not necessarily jitterbug making you miss. It's bring your lunch pail, right? It's kind of a pre-injury Pookie.
Yeah.
Who we all love. And so I'm here for it with him. So 5'11", 221. Again, another younger player. So the Broncos, outside of Bo Nix, went relatively young when it goes to birthdays. But some of the things I think are really great. Guy finishes it off. So 18 rushing touchdowns, over almost 6.5 a carry. I think he is the highest ranked running back in PFF's class this year. So, rated out overall at 94.2 on the season in 2023. So progressively got better. And so I think it's a guy that will provide you some punch. So he has said he's ran closer to the 4.5 range. That just was a really rough time, but you can look at vert jump. So explosion, super strong at 223, nice broad jump. Has good hand size for running back. So, we're not putting it on the turf. Long arms, which means, again, opportunity maybe to utilize that in catching the ball. And the guy is yoked, absolutely yoked. So I like the move. I think it spells some concern a bit for Samaje Perine, and definitely kind of your succession plan for Williams, who's on the last year of his deal. Doubt that he comes back unless there's a hometown discount, because you just don't pay running backs like you would. So I like him. I think the toughness again, and he's a guy that will convert 3rd and shorts, and I have no doubt that he can hold up in pass pro.
Yeah, he feels like an insurance plan for Pookie. If Pookie's hurt, then we just roll into Audric Estime. You probably don't lose too much. At least, that, like you said, post injury, Williams hasn't been as good. So it's just one of those things. You get kind of an insurance plan for your lead running back and someone who can be productive in the short yardage at least. I like the pick, especially for the value. I think that, probably, in most estimations, as far as rankings for that position group goes, he was probably a top 5 for most individuals. So I think, the value was there, and I was totally fine with it. And the dude, you're right, the dude is yoked.
Yep.
You want to hit those last two real quick?
Yeah, let's hit the last ones. I don't think that they made the PFF's top 50. That said, so the Broncos picked Devon Vele, receiver out of Utah, picked 235, and then Nick Gargiulio, center out of South Carolina. So with that said, what's any big takeaways from those two guys before I kind of go to my spiel? Or you want me going first?
No, yeah, I'll just say I think Vele, I'm not sure. I haven't watched a ton on him. He feels a little bit like a Tim Patrick insurance plan for me.
Yes.
He's very similar traits and skills from the same college. Yeah. Obviously, they like guys coming out of Utah because Ellis was out of Utah as well.
Yeah.
But I think that he's got some good traits. I'll be interested to watch a little bit more and see what exactly they saw. And Gargiulio, I mean, I think you just needed another body, another depth offensive lineman. I think he can play interior, either at center or guard. So just some more versatility.
Yep. Yeah. He, he's a guy that worked really hard, got a degree from Yale before transferring, to South Carolina. Has some good length, which is interesting. So 6'5", 318. So probably, can move him up and down the interior offensive line. Overall, pretty good athleticism. Positives from Bleacher Report: generates necessary torque to provide or uproot seal off targets, which is always positive. Understands how to maintain angles, inside out, all that good stuff. He's a little lean, I guess, because of how tall he is for an interior lineman. But that said, first year, only year at South Carolina, voted a captain. Was kind of sought after or thought of highly in that group. And then Vele, I've heard nothing but really positive things about him and what he can provide, especially from a leadership perspective. I think he'll be 27 when the season starts. So I think it's a guy that you're, back end of the roster guy, probably can play good special teams for. He's a bigger guy. I think 6'2", 6'3", like you said, essentially Tim Patrick mold. I saw Cecil Lammey put it out that's the player comp, which is always kind of fun when it matches up. But again, dart throw round 7, is that a guy that could come in, good contested catch guy, super sweet, competitive toughness, again, up there, and then adds another body that you can utilize in special teams. So probably a practice squad guy. I think the center, Gargiulio might actually have a better chance of hanging around. I think the Wattenberg experiment is probably ran its course. So maybe he comes in, him and Forsyth, or your interior offensive lineman moving forward, Quinn Bailey, all that good stuff. So I would have liked a tackle at some point in here. I think we said that every year, but when they spend as much as they have on those positions, I'm kind of fine with them not taking one. I have no doubt they probably take one early next year.
They'll have to,
especially regardless of whether or not they re-up Bowles, because of just insurance for either of those guys or McGlinchey for sure. So I like it. Overall, how'd you feel about their draft before we sign off to the people?
Yeah, I will give the overall draft a B. I liked it. I liked the day 3 stuff the most, probably. Probably going into day 3, I felt probably more like it was a CD range, just because I didn't feel like they were good value picks. But I think the whole picture in the moves that they made to go up and get Troy Franklin. We didn't even talk about the John Franklin Myers.
Yeah, Franklin Myers.
We'll get to at some point. But that helps that defensive line a ton. So I think they made some good moves, and I'm happy with the draft class overall.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? So outside of Bo Nix, not a ton of fanfare for a lot of it. I think maybe Troy Franklin is the one guy, but to get Franklin Myers, John Franklin Myers, for a 2026 6th round pick, pretty good move.
Steal.
So now you solidified the front 7 with Ellis and Franklin Myers. He's only 27, so a guy that could obviously be a part of the plan long term. You get a corner that's a good developmental piece, and then you get a big play receiver who should be here for a while. You get your quarterback. I think with the limited capital that they had, I think they came away pretty solid. I'd give them a B+. I think they had good value. I think Bo Nix would have been great if we could have traded back and get him and all that good stuff. When Atlanta did what they did, you couldn't risk it. Like Sean Payton said, maybe to get a couple extra 5th rounds. How sick would we be? How upset would we have been, though, if the Broncos, who, Rattler and Pratt didn't come off till late day 3. So that gap from Nix to Rattler and Pratt was significant.
Yeah.
So how mad would we have been?
Huge.
In hindsight, we would have been perturbed. I had been perturbed, right? Like, we were not ready to compete yet. Sure. We would have punted on this season. Now, at the end of the draft class, kind of everything coming together, it really looks like the Broncos are trying to compete in 2024 and feel like, that Nix or whoever plays quarterback, newly acquired Zach Wilson, all that good stuff, one of them will give this team enough at that position to really make something out of nothing. And so I'm excited to see they have some tradable pieces. Is Cortland Sutton going to hang around? I think I can see both sides of it, and we'll talk about it moving forward more. But I feel really optimistic. Like I said, it's the first time, long time. And nice job, George Payton and Sean Payton. It looks like they really work well together. So for everyone that wanted, George Payton fired, seems like they have a good working relationship. I don't care who has the power in it, as long as you're making solid decisions. And It seems like that duo is. So stoked. I couldn't be, more happy right now with how the Broncos are looking. So overall, like I said, B+, really solid off season. All that considering you were taking $53 million of cap hit with Russ, and you're still able to maneuver, get some really good players, in my opinion, for some really reasonable and smart deals. So overall, trending in the right direction. So, I feel good about it.
Good. Yeah, me too. We're up against this, so we're going to jump out of here pretty quick. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate you today. If you want to talk sports, just send us your questions. Hit us up in our DMs. We're happy to chat sports with all of y'all, Colorado and Colorado team fans. But we appreciate your time today. Have a good one. And remember, if you need a sports prescription, ask a doctor.
All the way. That's right. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.